Hi, everybody. We are here today to talk about how Tennessee specifically contributed to the war. So we're going to get started with Cordell Hull. He was FDR's Secretary of State. So remember, the Secretary of State's job is to act as um, basically America when dealing with other countries. So it's his job to negotiate treaties. It's his job to make all of the different trips to other countries for goodwill, all of that. So he is a politician from Pickett County, Tennessee. Um, you may remember him from the Sergeant York movie, where they talked about how the old man was reading the newspaper, and he said he could remember when Cordell Hull weren't knee high to a grasshopper. Okay. Um, and then at the end of the movie, he's the politician that's talking to York about all of the businesses that want him to endorse stuff. He was one of the founders of the United Nations. So he is one of the people that gets the United Nations done so that we can stop all these world wars. And he will receive the Nobel Prize for his work in the United Nations in 1945. Now, remember, the Nobel Peace Prize is given out to people who have done something significant to make the world more peaceful, make the world more likely to not have more wars. All right, so Fort Campbell is on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. It is home of the 101st Airborne, the Screaming Eagles. My brother was one. Um, they had one of the largest Army training camps in America. Okay, they called it Camp Campbell at the time. It didn't become Fort Campbell until later. And for a while there, it served as a prisoner of war camp. Okay, so you've got, this is the enlisted men's barracks and the mess halls. So these would be barracks down here, and then this was the big one was the mess hall. That's in Fort Campbell, and then this is a general view of the Army Hospital on Fort Campbell. Okay, on the Kentucky-Tennessee line. Then you have Memphis. Memphis becomes a major manufacturing center during this war because it has access to the Mississippi River, which makes it really easy to float things down to the Caribbean. It's going to become a military hub. Okay, you're going to get a lot of major wartime industries because of this. You have a lot of you get a population boom because, once again, Great Depression, jobs are here, people are going to be moving. And then Memphis was the backup location for the federal government in case we actually got invaded. America has one main weakness, and one of our main weaknesses is that our capital city, where all our government is on a coastline, which means it's easier to get to. So there are all these different backup locations that the federal government can move to if it needs to. And in World War II, Memphis was one of them. Then you have Alcoa, the Aluminum Company of America. Alcoa produced almost all of the, well, not almost all, but much of the aluminum that we used to build all of our aircrafts during World War II. If Hitler had a list of things he could take out in America if he could, this was ranked high on that list. He wanted to take out Alcoa because it's a lot easier to take out the plant making the aluminum for the planes than it is to take out the planes themselves. And for a time, Alcoa was the world's largest building. Okay, I know it doesn't look like much because it's not a skyscraper, but remember, skyscrapers go up and Alcoa goes out for like ever. Okay. All right, so Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge is known as the Secret City. It is one of the most closely guarded secrets of World War II. The Secret City, or Oak Ridge, is part of what's called the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project is our country's atomic weapons program during World War II. It was headed by a man named Robert Oppenheimer. I'm not even going to try to spell that on this. I'll write it on the board. Okay. Robert Oppenheimer is the head of the Manhattan Project, and he is stationed in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Okay. So you'd have lots of these different cities that were making things. And then to the west in New Mexico is where they put it all together. So Oppenheimer had the job of coordinating all of the different places that were making parts and then putting together the actual bombs. Now, Oak Ridge was used to enrich uranium, which is a radioactive isotope. They enrich it to use for the atomic bomb. That's their job. They do a lot more than that now, but that was their job in World War II. Uh, and the which bomb? Anybody know which bomb is the uranium going to go into? Little Boy. Okay, uranium went into the what was supposed to be the weaker bomb, Little Boy, and then plutonium went into the bigger, stronger bomb, Fat Man. Okay, so Oak Ridge is guys, and it is incredibly secret. They whenever they built Oak Ridge, they blocked off the roads and would only let people in that were going to live there. When they recruited the scientists who were going to work there, they tried to recruit married men so that their wives could work there as well. So their wives could work as secretaries or, typewriter or typists. I'll get it right eventually. Um, so all of that stuff. Okay. Uh, they had signs everywhere. I'll show you some pictures in class, but they had signs everywhere. Loose lips sink ships. Don't tell anybody. Okay, I pledge loyalty and silence about the war. Okay, one of my favorite ones that I'll show you in class. It had the three little monkeys, and it just was hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Okay, there's a lot of propaganda involved in here. To get in and out of the plant every day, you were taken out of your car. You were completely searched. Your car was completely searched. They even searched the trunk and the under the hood because they did not want any of this information getting out. Because if it got to Hitler in any way, we were screwed. All right, so the Manhattan Project, scientists believe that they could harness the destructive power of atoms, and they could. Um, Robert Oppenheimer is the guy in charge of it. Um, the July 16th, 1945, he has the first nuclear detonation. Okay, they did it. It's in the desert of New Mexico. If anybody's ever seen that movie, The Hills Have Eyes. Okay. The whole premise behind that horror movie is that there were people living in that desert, even though there weren't. And the radiation affected them, and it affected their children along the way. So July 16th, 1945, excuse me, um, uh, Oppenheimer gets the nuclear test, and now he has to tell Truman. Truman is actually in the middle of the last Big Three conference when he gets this. Whenever he gets this information, and that's whenever he sends Japan that warning, right? Surrender now or face prompt and utter destruction. So, how did this end, right? What is the outcome of World War II? The first big thing you need to know is that Europe and the Pacific are absolutely devastated. Okay, there's no economy left because their entire life had been revolved around just surviving this war. So there's no major industries left. We had bombed whatever there was. Everything needs to be rebuilt: roads, schools, bridges, dams, water treatment facilities. Everything needs to be rebuilt. And people are looking for help to rebuild. They're looking to other countries to help them because they can't afford to do it themselves. And a lot of these countries, it's not that they can't, it's not that they did anything wrong. They just happened to be where the fighting was. Like Poland. Poland did nothing wrong, right? Poland was invaded at the beginning of the war. They didn't have time to do anything wrong, but they can't afford to rebuild. So they're going to look to other countries for help. And you're going to get two world superpowers that emerge after World War II. Two countries that were not terribly devastated by this war. They weren't terribly hurt. They still had an economy, so they could still afford to help people. They don't have a lot of rebuilding to do on their own. So they are able to help other people. And there are two major superpowers, and one of them is us, the United States. We consider ourselves the good guys because whenever we help other countries, we make sure they are democracies. If they're not democracies, we push really hard until they become a democracy. The other superpower is the Soviet Union. We consider them the bad guys because they're communists. So whenever they help out other countries, they're going to push really hard until their countries become communist. So this is the beginning of kind of the Cold War. This is the beginning of us competing with the Soviet Union to see who can have the most influence on other countries. And that is it.